The key wouldn't turn. I stood on the front porch of what had been my home, my surgical bandages still fresh beneath my clothes, my body trembling from exhaustion and pain medication. The brass key that had opened this door thousands of times now felt foreign in my shaking fingers. Through the window I could see them. A young couple laughing over takeout containers, their toddler playing with toys scattered across my hardwood floors. The woman wore a sweater I'd never seen before, sitting in the chair where I used to read every morning. The man was hanging pictures on walls that still bore the faint outlines of my own artwork. They looked so happy, so settled, so permanent. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hope you're feeling better, Meredith. The divorce papers are on your lawyer's desk. Don't try to contact me. Brian." I read it 3 times before the words sank in. Divorce papers. Don't contact me. But this was my house. My name was on the deed. My grandmother's china was in those cabinets. My life was behind that door. Wasn't it? The woman inside noticed me through the window and approached with a concerned smile, opening the door I could no longer unlock. "Can I help you?" she asked kindly, bouncing her baby on her hip. I opened my mouth to say, "This is my house," but no sound came out. Because looking at her face, genuinely confused, genuinely caring, I realized something that made my blood turn to ice. She wasn't a squatter. She wasn't a thief. She was a homeowner. And somehow, while I was unconscious on an operating table fighting for my life, I had become a stranger. Before we continue, please write in the comment which country you are watching this video. We love knowing where our global family is tuning in from. And if this is your first time on this channel, please subscribe. Your support helps us bring even more epic revenge tales of life. Enjoy listening. 3 months earlier I thought I knew what love looked like. It looked like Brian making me coffee every morning exactly the way I liked it. 2 sugars, a splash of cream served in the blue mug my grandmother had given me. It looked like him rubbing my shoulders after long days at the accounting firm where I'd worked for 5 years, building our future one client at a time. It looked like quiet Sunday mornings in our garden, planning the renovations we'd make to the house I'd inherited from my parents. "You work too hard, Mare," he'd say, using the nickname that made me feel cherished. "When are you going to slow down and let me take care of you?" I should have heard the warning in those words. But love makes you deaf to the things that matter most. Brian Castellanos had swept into my life 4 years ago like a summer storm. Intense, overwhelming, impossible to resist. He was everything I wasn't. Spontaneous where I was careful, charming where I was reserved, confident where I was cautious. He made me feel alive in ways I'd never experienced. "You're too good for me," he'd whisper against my neck during those early days. "I don't deserve someone like you." Another warning I missed. We married 2 years later in a small ceremony in our backyard. I wore my mother's dress, and Brian cried when he saw me walking down the makeshift aisle between the rose bushes. His best man, Dante, clapped him on the back and joked about how Brian had finally found his meal ticket. Everyone laughed. Even me. I thought it was just Dante being crude. I didn't realize it was the truth. The house had been in my family for 3 generations. My great-grandfather built it in 1952, my grandparents raised 5 children in it, and my parents had loved it until the day they died in a car accident when I was 25. It was a modest 2-story colonial with good bones and a wraparound porch, sitting on 2 acres of land that had tripled in value over the past decade. When Brian moved in after our wedding, he immediately started talking about improvements. "We could knock out this wall," he'd say, gesturing at the kitchen. "Open up the whole first floor. Make it modern." "I like it the way it is," I'd reply. "It has character." "Character doesn't pay the bills, baby. We could flip this place and buy something bigger. Better." But I never wanted bigger or better. I wanted home. And this house, with its creaky floors and drafty windows and memories soaked into every board, was home. Brian seemed to understand. He stopped pushing about selling and started talking about renovations instead. We'd add a master suite, update the kitchen, maybe build a deck. He even drew up plans, spending hours at the kitchen table with graph paper and measuring tape. "I want to make this perfect for us," he'd say, kissing my temple. "Our forever home." I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. The first crack in my perfect marriage appeared 5 months ago, though I didn't recognize it at the time. I came home from work to find Brian on the phone in his office, speaking in rapid Spanish. When he saw me, he quickly ended the call. Who was that? I asked. Nobody important. Just Dante. But Dante didn't speak Spanish. Brian had taught me enough over the years to know the difference between a casual conversation and something urgent, something secretive. The tone had been all wrong. Everything okay? Of course. He pulled me into his arms, but his smile felt forced. Just guy stuff. You know how it is. I didn't know how it was. Brian and I told each other everything. At least I thought we did. The phone calls became more frequent. Always in Spanish, always ending abruptly when I entered the room. When I asked about them, Brian would deflect with kisses or jokes or sudden plans for dinner out. He was so good at distraction that I almost convinced myself I was imagining things. Then came the papers. I found them by accident, tucked inside a folder marked insurance in Brian's desk drawer. I'd been looking for our homeowner's policy to update our coverage, but instead I found documents I didn't understand. Legal forms with my name on them, written in language so dense and technical that it might as well have been hieroglyphics. What are these? I asked Brian that night, spreading the papers across our kitchen table. His face went pale, then flushed red. Where did you find those? In your desk. I was looking for the insurance papers. Brian, what are these? Nothing. Just estate planning stuff. You know, in case something happens to one of us. Estate planning? But I am 32 years old. It's smart to be prepared, Mayor. My cousin's a lawyer, remember? He said we should have everything in order. I'd never met this cousin. In 4 years of marriage, Brian had introduced me to exactly 3 members of his family. His mother, who spoke no English and seemed to actively dislike me. His brother Dante, who made my skin crawl. And an uncle who'd attended our wedding but left early. For someone who claimed to have a large, close-knit family, Brian kept them remarkably distant from our life. But why didn't you tell me about this? Why didn't we do it together? I wanted to surprise you. Show you how responsible I'm being. He gathered the papers quickly, his hands shaking slightly. Don't worry about it, okay? It's all boring legal stuff. I wanted to push, but Brian was already moving toward me with that smile that had made me fall in love with him. He wrapped his arms around my waist and nuzzled my neck. You smell like vanilla, he murmured. Did you use that lotion I bought you? And just like that, the papers were forgotten. Brian was a master at making me forget the things that mattered. The headaches started 2 weeks later. At first, they were just minor annoyances. A dull throb behind my eyes after long days at work, easily dismissed with ibuprofen and an early bedtime. But they grew worse, more frequent, accompanied by dizzy spells that left me gripping door frames and nausea that made it impossible to eat. You're working too hard, Brian said when I mentioned them. You need to take better care of yourself. But I wasn't working any harder than usual. If anything, I'd been taking on fewer clients, trying to spend more time at home with my husband. The headaches felt different, wrong in a way I couldn't articulate. Dr. Regina Anders had been my physician for 8 years. She was thorough, careful, and had never dismissed my concerns. When I described the headaches, she immediately ordered tests. I want to rule out some things, she said, her expression serious. The pattern you're describing, sudden onset, increasing severity accompanied by neurological symptoms, we need to take a closer look. The MRI revealed a brain tumor. Not cancer, Dr. Anders was quick to assure me, but a benign growth pressing against my optic nerve. Left untreated, it could cause permanent vision loss, seizures, or worse. The surgery to remove it was complex but routine, with a high success rate and minimal risk. You'll need to stay in the hospital for 3 to 5 days, Dr. Anders explained. Then several weeks of recovery at home. You'll need someone to help you during that time. Of course, Brian said, squeezing my hand. I'll take care of everything. I should have been terrified. Brain surgery, even routine brain surgery, was serious. But sitting in that sterile office with Brian's warm hand in mine, I felt oddly calm. We would get through this together the way we got through everything. When can we schedule it? I asked. As soon as possible. How about next Friday? I looked at Brian, who nodded immediately. Whatever Meredith needs. Dr. Anders smiled. You're lucky to have such a supportive husband. Lucky. Yes, that's what I thought I was. The week before surgery passed in a blur of preparations. I arranged for extended leave from work, stocked the freezer with easy meals, and made lists of everything Brian would need to know about running the household while I recovered. He seemed distracted, spending more time on his phone than usual, but I attributed it to stress about my surgery. Are you scared? I asked him the night before the operation. Terrified, he admitted, pulling me close. I can't lose you, Mare. You're everything to me. You won't lose me. Dr. Anders says the success rate is over 90%. I know. I love you so much. He made love to me that night with a desperate intensity that should have felt romantic. Instead, it felt like goodbye. I woke up at 5 a.m. on surgery day, my stomach churning with nerves. Brian was already awake, staring at the ceiling. Ready? He asked. As ready as I'll ever be. He drove me to the hospital in unusual silence, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. When we reached the surgical floor, he kissed me with the same desperate intensity as the night before. I love you, he whispered against my lips. I love you too. I'll see you when I wake up. See you when you wake up. Those were the last words my husband ever spoke to me. I woke up alone. The recovery room was dim, filled with the steady beeping of monitors and the antiseptic smell that clings to hospitals like a second skin. My head felt like it was wrapped in cotton, and when I tried to move, pain shot through my skull like lightning. Easy there, a voice said. A nurse appeared beside my bed, a kind-faced woman with graying hair and gentle hands. You're okay. The surgery went perfectly. Brian. My voice came out as a croak. Your husband, he stepped out about an hour ago. Said he needed to make some calls. An hour ago. How long had I been awake? The clock on the wall said 3:47, but I couldn't remember if that was AM or PM, or even what day it was. What time is it? I managed. Friday afternoon. You've been out for 2 weeks. Dr. Anders will be by soon to check on you. 2 weeks. Brian had been gone for an hour, which meant he's been here for the past weeks. That seemed reasonable. He probably needed food, fresh air, a break from the stress of waiting. But as the hours passed and he didn't return, a cold knot formed in my stomach. Has my husband called? I asked the night nurse. Not that I'm aware of. But visiting hours are almost over anyway. He'll probably be back first thing tomorrow. Tomorrow came and went. So did the next day and the next. Dr. Anders found me crying on Sunday morning. Meredith, what's wrong? Are you in pain? My husband, I sobbed. He hasn't come back. He hasn't called. Something must have happened to him. Dr. Anders's expression shifted from concern to something harder to read. Have you tried calling him? His phone goes straight to voicemail. I've left dozens of messages. What about other family members? Friends? That's when the full weight of my isolation hit me. Brian's family was a mystery to me, and over the years of our marriage, I'd gradually lost touch with most of my friends. He'd never forbidden me from seeing them, but he'd always had something else planned when they called. A romantic dinner, a weekend getaway, a project that needed my attention. Slowly, subtly, my world had shrunk until it contained only him. There's no one else, I whispered. Dr. Anders sat on the edge of my bed, her expression gentle but troubled. Meredith, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Has your husband ever hurt you, controlled you, made you feel isolated from other people? No, I said immediately. Brian loves me. He takes care of me. He would never. But even as I said the words, memories flickered through my mind like old film reels. The way he'd pout when I made plans with friends. The subtle criticisms disguised as concern. The way he'd gradually taken over our finances, our social calendar, our entire life. He's probably just scared, I said, more to convince myself than Dr. Anders. Some people can't handle hospitals. He'll come back. Dr. Anders didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. We're going to discharge you tomorrow. Do you have somewhere to go? Home. I'll go home. Will someone be there to help you? You shouldn't be alone for the first week. Brian will be there. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. The taxi ride home cost $67. Money I didn't have up to the amount in cash because Brian handled all our finances. I had to ask the driver to wait while I went inside to get my checkbook, assuming I could still get inside my own house. That's when I discovered the key wouldn't turn. Standing on that porch, reading Brian's text message, watching strangers live in my home, I felt something break inside me that had nothing to do with surgery. It was the sound of a life shattering, of trust dying, of the woman I'd been for 32 years simply ceasing to exist. The young mother, Samantha, she introduced herself, invited me inside for tea when I explained that I used to live there. She was kind, concerned, completely unaware that she was sitting in the ruins of my existence. We bought the house 2 weeks ago, she said, bouncing her baby on her knee. It was such a quick sale. The previous owner seemed really motivated to sell. 2 weeks ago. While I in the hospital 2 weeks ago, unconscious and trusting that my husband was handling everything. Yes, it was amazing. We'd been looking for months and then this beautiful house just appeared on the market. Below asking price too. The seller said he needed to relocate quickly for work. Brian hadn't worked a steady job in 2 years. I'd been supporting us both while he figured out his next move. Did you meet the seller? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Oh yes, lovely man. Very charming. Brian something. Castellanos, I think. He seemed so sad to be leaving. Said the house had too many memories. Too many memories. Of me, presumably. The wife he'd erased while she fought for her life. Are you okay? Samantha asked. You look pale. I wasn't okay. I would never be okay again. But sitting in this woman's living room, my living room, I realized something that cut through the shock and pain like a blade. I was angry. Not just hurt or confused or heartbroken. I was furious with a rage so pure and cold it felt like swallowing ice. Brian had stolen more than my house. He'd stolen my life, my identity, my sense of reality itself. He'd left me with nothing while I was unconscious and helpless. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd left me alive. I should go, I said, standing on unsteady legs. Thank you for the tea. Are you sure you're okay? Do you need me to call someone? No, I said, forcing a smile that felt like broken glass. I'll be fine. But as I walked away from my former home, I knew that the woman who had lived there, trusting, naive Meredith, was gone forever. In her place was someone harder, someone who understood that love could be a weapon and trust could be fatal. I had nowhere to go, no money, no car, and a head full of surgical staples. But I had something Brian hadn't counted on. I had nothing left to lose. The Riverside Motel charged $39 a night and didn't ask questions. The rooms smelled like cigarettes and industrial disinfectant, and the bedspread had stains I didn't want to identify. But it was shelter, and for now that was enough. I sat on the edge of the sagging mattress and tried to make sense of my situation. My purse contained $43 in cash, 2 credit cards, and my driver's license. I tried the credit cards first. Declined. My hands shook as I called the bank from the motel's ancient landline. Mrs. Castellanos, the customer service representative said in a tone that suggested she'd been expecting my call. I see you're calling about your accounts. Yes, my credit cards aren't working. That's because all joint accounts were closed on Friday per your husband's request. He provided the proper documentation showing he had power of attorney for financial decisions during your medical incapacitation. The words hit me like physical blows. Power of attorney? I never signed. According to our records, the documents were notarized 2 months ago. Your husband explained that you were undergoing brain surgery and had given him temporary authority to handle your affairs. 2 months ago. Right around the time I'd found those papers in his desk. The estate planning documents I'd been too trusting to examine closely. What about my personal account? The one that was mine before we married. That account was closed and the funds transferred to your husband's personal account last Tuesday. Again, per the power of attorney documentation. How much was transferred? I'm not authorized to discuss specific amounts, but I can tell you that all funds from both accounts, approximately $47,000, were withdrawn in cash on Wednesday morning. $47,000. My inheritance from my parents. My emergency fund. 6 years of careful saving. Gone. Ma'am? Are you still there? I need copies of those power of attorney documents. You'll need to visit a branch in person with proper identification. I should warn you, though, if you're planning to dispute these transactions, you'll need to prove the documents were forged or signed under duress. I hung up and stared at the water-stained ceiling. Brian had planned this for months. While I was falling asleep in his arms every night, while I was cooking his favorite meals and planning our future, he was systematically destroying my life. But how had he gotten me to sign those papers? I would have remembered signing something that important. Unless a memory surfaced, hazy and incomplete. 2 months ago, Brian had brought home a stack of papers from his cousin the lawyer. Insurance forms, he'd said. Updates to our policies. I'd been tired from a long day at work and he'd guided my hand to signature line after signature line. Just sign here, baby. And here. Initial there. It's all standard stuff. I trusted him completely. I'd signed whatever he put in front of me without reading a word. The phone rang, startling me from my thoughts. For a wild moment I hoped it might be Brian calling to explain, to apologize, to tell me this was all some terrible mistake. Meredith Castellanos? The voice was crisp, professional, unfamiliar. Yes. This is Vivian Vance from Vance, Darwin and Associates. I'm calling regarding your divorce proceedings. Divorce proceedings. The words felt surreal. I don't understand. Your husband filed for divorce 3 weeks ago, citing irreconcilable differences and abandonment. You've been served papers at your last known address. I was in the hospital 3 weeks ago. I've been in the hospital. Pause. I see. Well, the papers were served to your residence. Since you didn't respond within the required time frame, a default judgment has been entered. Default judgment? The divorce has been finalized, Excuse me, Ms. Anders. You've reverted to your maiden name per the decree. My maiden name. He'd even taken away my married name, erasing every trace of our life together. What about the house? My property. According to the settlement, all real estate was awarded to Mr. Castellanos as he was the primary financial contributor to the household. That's not true. I inherited that house. It was mine before we married. I'm afraid I can only tell you what's in the decree. If you wish to contest these findings, you'll need to file an appeal within 30 days of the judgment date. When was the judgment date? Yesterday. 29 days. I had 29 days to prove that my entire marriage had been a lie, that my husband had systematically defrauded me, that the man I'd loved had destroyed my life while I was unconscious on an operating table. Ms. Anders? Are you there? I need a lawyer. I'd recommend that, yes. Good luck. The line went dead, leaving me alone with the sound of my own ragged breathing. I spent the next hour calling every lawyer in the phone book. The story was always the same. They needed a retainer, usually between $5,000 and $10,000. Money I didn't have. Money Brian had stolen. Finally, a receptionist at a legal aid clinic told me they might be able to help, but I'd need to prove indigence and the earliest appointment was in 6 weeks. 6 weeks. By then, any chance of recovering my life would be gone. I was trapped in a nightmare of legal documents and bureaucratic procedures, all designed by a system that assumed people had resources, had support, had someone who cared whether they lived or died. That's when I remembered Elena. Elena Vasquez had been my closest friend in college, before Brian gradually convinced me that she was toxic and jealous of our happiness. She was a paralegal now, working for a firm that specialized in family law. We hadn't spoken in 3 years, but she was the only person I could think of who might understand the legal maze I was trapped in. I found her number online and called from the motel phone, my heart pounding. Elena Vasquez. Elena? It's Meredith. Meredith Anders. A long pause. Meredith? Oh my God, I thought you were dead. What? Your husband called me 6 months ago. Said you'd been in an accident, that you were in a coma. He said you probably wouldn't wake up. The room spun around me. He told you I was in a coma? He was crying, Mare. He sounded devastated. He said the doctors didn't think you'd make it and that you'd want me to know because we used to be so close. 6 months ago. Before the headaches, before the tumor, before any of this started. Brian had been telling people I was dying 6 months ago. Elena, I need help. I need help so badly. Where are you? I'm coming to get you right now. Elena found me 3 hours later, sitting in the motel parking lot because I couldn't bear to stay in that room another minute. She looked exactly the same. Wild curly hair, fierce dark eyes, the kind of presence that made people step aside when she walked into a room. She took one look at me and started crying. Jesus, Mare. What did he do to you? I told her everything. The surgery, the house, the money, the divorce. She listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each revelation. That bastard, she said when I finished. That calculating, sociopathic bastard. Can you help me? Legally, I mean. I'm going to do more than help you. I'm going to destroy him. Elena drove me to her apartment, A cozy one-bedroom filled with law books and case files. She made me tea and wrapped me in a blanket like I was a trauma victim, which I suppose I was. First things first, she said, pulling out a legal pad. We need to document everything. Every conversation, every document, every lie. Then we're going to prove that your husband committed fraud, forgery, and probably a dozen other felonies. But the power of attorney was obtained through deception. That makes it invalid. And selling your inherited property without your knowledge? That's theft, plain and simple. For the first time in days I felt a flicker of hope. But Elena, I don't have any money for legal fees. Don't worry about that. My boss, Douglas Rivera, specializes in cases like this. He'll take it on contingency if the case is strong enough. And from what you've told me, this case is ironclad. She was wrong about that, but I didn't know it yet. The next morning, Elena took me to meet Douglas Rivera. He was a small, intense man with silver hair and the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing. His office was lined with awards and newspaper clippings about high-profile cases he'd won. Ms. Anders, he said after I'd told my story for the third time in 24 hours. What you've described is certainly criminal. The question is whether we can prove it. What do you mean? Your husband was very careful. The power of attorney documents appear to be legitimate. Notarized, witnessed, filed properly. The divorce proceedings followed all legal requirements. On paper, everything he did was legal. But I was unconscious. I couldn't defend myself. That's what we need to prove. Elena tells me you suspect the signatures were forged or obtained through deception. I remember signing papers, but he told me they were insurance forms. Douglas nodded. We'll need a handwriting expert to analyze the signatures. That's expensive, but if we can prove forgery, we can unravel everything else. How expensive? $5,000 minimum. Maybe more. My heart sank. I don't have $5,000. There might be another way, Elena said suddenly. What if we can prove he planned this? If we can show premeditation, that he married Meredith specifically to steal her assets? That would be fraud, Douglas agreed. But proving intent is even harder than proving forgery. Not if we can find other victims. The room went quiet. Other victims. The possibility hadn't occurred to me, but now that Elena had said it, it seemed obvious. A man who could orchestrate something this elaborate, this cruel, had probably done it before. How would we find them? I asked. Marriage records, Elena said, her eyes bright with possibility. Divorce records. Property transfers. If Brian has done this before, there will be a paper trail. Douglas leaned back in his chair, considering. It's a long shot, but it might work. Elena, you have access to the legal databases through our firm. Start with marriage records in the tri-state area going back 10 years. What about the handwriting analysis? I asked. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. For now, let's see what we can find about your husband's past. Elena spent the next 3 days buried in legal databases while I recovered at her apartment. The surgical staples in my head were healing, but the emotional wounds felt fresh and raw. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Brian's face the morning of my surgery, the way he'd kissed me goodbye with such desperate intensity. Had he known it was goodbye? Had he been planning to disappear while I was unconscious? On Thursday afternoon, Elena burst through the apartment door with a stack of printouts and a look of grim satisfaction. I found them, she said. Them. Brian's other wives. She spread the papers across her coffee table like a detective laying out evidence. Marriage certificates, divorce decrees, property records, all bearing the name Brian Castellanos. Wife number 1. Maria Santos, married 2018, divorced 2019. She owned a small restaurant in Queens. After the divorce, the restaurant was sold and Brian got half the proceeds. Wife number 2. Melinda Arian, married 2020, divorced 2021. She inherited a house in Connecticut from her grandmother. Guess who ended up with the house? I stared at the papers, feeling sick. And wife number 4. Meredith Anders, married 2021, divorced 2024. Inherited house, life savings, everything stolen while she was unconscious in a hospital bed. 3 women. 3 lives destroyed. 3 carefully planned and executed thefts disguised as love. There's more, Elena said grimly. I found death certificates. Death certificates? Maria Santos died in a car accident months after her divorce. Melinda Arian died of an apparent suicide 8 months after losing her house. The room spun around me. You think he killed them? I think they got too close to the truth. I think they tried to fight back and he silenced them. But why am I still alive? Elena's expression was grim. Because he told everyone you were already dead. He's been setting up your death for months. I bet if we dig deeper we'll find he's already collected on your life insurance. Life insurance. We'd taken out policies on each other when we got married. $1 million each with the spouse as beneficiary. Elena, I whispered. I think I'm supposed to be dead. Yeah, she said. I think so too. Douglas Rivera's expression was grave when we presented our findings the next morning. This changes everything, he said, studying the documents Elena had compiled. If we can prove Brian Castellanos is a serial killer who targets women for their assets, this becomes a federal case. What does that mean for me? I asked. It means you're in danger. If he's killed 2 women to cover his tracks, he won't hesitate to kill the third. The words sent ice through my veins. I'd been so focused on getting my life back that I hadn't considered the possibility that Brian might try to finish what he'd started. We need to contact the FBI, Douglas continued. But first we need more evidence. The pattern is clear, but we need proof of murder, not just suspicious deaths. How do we get that? We need to find Brian. And we need to make him think you're not a threat. Elena leaned forward. What are you suggesting? A trap. We let him know that Meredith is alive, but we make him think she's broken, helpless, not capable of fighting back. We make him come to us. Absolutely not, Elena said immediately. That's insane. You want to use her as bait. It's the only way to get him to reveal himself. Right now he thinks he's safe. He's probably already planning his next victim. The thought of Brian targeting another woman, another trusting soul who would fall for his charm and wake up to find her life destroyed, made my decision for me. I'll do it. Mare, no. It's too dangerous. Elena, he's going to keep doing this. How many more women have to die? Douglas nodded approvingly. We'll have you wired, of course. Full surveillance. The moment he admits to anything incriminating, we'll have him. And if he tries to kill me? We won't let that happen. But even as he said it, I could see the doubt in his eyes. Brian was smart, careful, and he'd had months to plan. If he'd killed 2 women and made it look like accidents, he was more dangerous than any of us had imagined. The plan was simple in concept, terrifying in execution. Elena would reach out to Dante, Brian's brother, claiming she'd heard about my accident and wanted to pay her respects. She'd mentioned that I'd survived but was in bad shape. Brain damaged, helpless, no memory of recent events. He'll tell Brian, Douglas explained. And Brian will have to come see for himself. He can't risk leaving a loose end alive. What if he just sends someone else to finish me? He won't. This is personal for him. He'll want to see you suffer before he finishes the job. The words should have terrified me, but instead I felt a cold calm settling over me. Let him come. Let him think I was broken and helpless. He was about to learn that the woman he'd tried to destroy was stronger than he'd ever imagined. Elena made the call that afternoon. Her voice perfectly pitched with grief and concern. Dante? It's Elena Vasquez, Meredith's friend from college. Yes, I heard about the accident. It's so tragic. What? He's alive? Oh, thank God. Brian must be so relieved. Wait, what do you mean he doesn't know? She was a better actress than I'd given her credit for. I watched her face cycle through confusion, shock, and dawning horror as she played the part of someone just learning the truth. Brain damage? How severe? She doesn't remember anything from the past year? No, I won't tell anyone. Poor Brian, he must be devastated that she doesn't remember their marriage. Of course I understand why he needed space to grieve. Yes, please tell him I called. Tell him if there's anything he needs. She hung up and turned to me with grim satisfaction. He bought it completely. Said Brian has been destroyed by your condition, that he couldn't bear to see you like this. Dante's going to call him right now. How long do you think it will take? Not long. If I know men like Brian, he'll want to see the damage for himself. Douglas had arranged for me to stay at a safe house. A modest apartment in Queens that looked run down from the outside but was equipped with state-of-the-art surveillance equipment. FBI agents posed as neighbors and every room was wired for sound and video. Remember, Agent Regina Kim briefed me, your goal is to get him talking. Make him feel safe, superior. Let him think you're no threat to him. What if he doesn't confess? What if he's too smart for that? Then we'll have to find another way. But men like Brian have one weakness: their ego. He'll want to gloat. He'll want you to know how clever he's been. I spent 2 days in that apartment practicing my role. Brain-damaged Meredith was confused, childlike, easily manipulated. She remembered fragments of her old life but couldn't piece them together coherently. She trusted everyone and suspected no one. It was harder than I'd expected, pretending to be helpless when every instinct screamed at me to fight. But every time I wavered, I thought about Maria and Melinda. 2 women who'd trusted the wrong man and paid with their lives. The call came on Wednesday evening. Meredith. The voice was hesitant, hopeful, achingly familiar. Brian. I let my voice crack with emotion. Is that really you? Oh God, Mare. I've been so worried. Dante told me that you'd been hurt. I don't understand what happened. The doctors say I had surgery, but I don't remember. I woke up and you were gone and I couldn't find you anywhere. I'm so sorry, baby. I've been dealing with some things. Family stuff. I didn't want to burden you while you were recovering. Family stuff. Like stealing my life and planning my murder. Can you come see me? I'm so confused and the doctors won't tell me anything. I need you to help me understand. Pause. Where are you? I gave him the address of the safe house, my heart pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it through the phone. I'll be there in an hour. Brian, I love you. I've missed you so much. I love you too, Mare. Everything's going to be okay now. The line went dead and I sat in the silence of the apartment, knowing that in 1 hour, I would come face to face with the man who'd tried to erase me from existence. Agent Kim's voice crackled through my earpiece. He's coming. Remember, stay calm, stay in character. We've got you covered. But as I sat there waiting, I realized something that chilled me to the bone. I wasn't afraid of Brian anymore. I was afraid of what I might do to him when I saw his face. The knock came exactly 1 hour later. 3 soft raps, the same pattern Brian had always used when he came home from work. I opened the door and there he was. Still handsome, still charming, still the man I'd fallen in love with 4 years ago. But now I could see what I'd missed before. The coldness behind his eyes, the calculation in his smile. Meredith. He stepped forward as if to embrace me, then stopped, studying my face. You look different. The surgery, I said, touching the fading scar on my scalp. The doctor said it might change things. I feel different too. Like there are pieces missing. He relaxed slightly. What do you remember? Fragments. I remember our wedding day. I remember the house, our house. But everything after that is fuzzy. The doctors say I might never get it all back. That might be for the best, he said, and for just a moment his mask slipped. I saw satisfaction in his eyes, relief that his plan had worked even better than he'd hoped. What do you mean? Nothing, baby. Just that you've been through a lot. Maybe it's better not to dwell on painful memories. He moved into the apartment and I noticed how his eyes catalogued everything. The exits, the windows, the potential weapons. He was planning something. Brian, I'm so confused about everything. The house, I went there but strangers are living in it. They said you sold it. I had to, Mare. The medical bills were enormous. We needed the money for your treatment. But it was my house. My family's house. Our house, he corrected gently. We were married, remember? What's yours is mine and what's mine is yours. I guess I don't understand how marriage works anymore. The brain damage. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of everything from now on. You don't need to think about complicated things like money or legal documents. He was so patronizing, so confident that I was helpless. It took every ounce of self-control not to show him exactly how wrong he was. Where have you been staying? I asked. I tried to find you, but no one knew where you were. I've been traveling. Dealing with family business. He sat beside me on the couch, close enough that I could smell his cologne. The same scent that used to make me feel safe now made my skin crawl. What kind of family business? Nothing you need to worry about. Just tying up loose ends. Loose ends. Like the other women he'd eliminated. Brian, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you still love me? Even though I'm damaged now? He cupped my face in his hands and his touch felt like ice. Of course I love you. You're my wife. But we're divorced. Someone told me we got divorced. His hands tightened slightly on my face. Who told you that? I don't remember. Maybe I dreamed it? Everything is so confusing. You dreamed it, he said firmly. We're still married. We'll always be married. Good. I was scared you might leave me because I'm not the same person anymore. Never, he said and leaned in to kiss me. I let him even though every cell in my body screamed in revulsion. His lips were cold, mechanical, the kiss of a predator marking his prey. When he pulled back, his eyes were calculating again. Meredith, I need to ask you something important. Have you talked to anyone about us? About what happened before your surgery? Like who? Old friends, lawyers, anyone who might have asked questions about our marriage or our finances. I made my expression blank, confused. I don't think so. I don't really remember having any friends. Just you. Relief flooded his features. Good. Good. Some people might try to confuse you, tell you lies about me. But you can't trust them, okay? You can only trust me. Hey. But Brian, why would anyone lie about you? Because they're jealous. They see how much I love you, how well I take care of you, and they want to destroy that. Like who? He was quiet for a long moment and I could see him debating how much to tell me. Finally he spoke. There were other women before you. Women who thought they loved me but they didn't understand what real love was. They became problematic. Problematic how? They tried to take things that didn't belong to them. They made accusations, threatened to cause trouble. I had to protect myself. What happened to them? Another long pause. They're not a problem anymore. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. He was confessing but carefully in language that could be interpreted multiple ways. I don't understand. You don't need to understand. Just know that I'll always protect what's mine. Always. He stood up and walked to the window looking out at the street below. This is a nice place. Quiet. Private. The social worker found it for me. She said I needed somewhere safe to recover. Social worker? From the hospital. She's been helping me figure out how to live on my own. What's her name? I don't remember. Everything is so fuzzy. He turned back to me and I saw something new in his expression. Suspicion. Meredith, show me your arms. What? Your arms. Show me. I rolled up my sleeves, confused. He grabbed my wrists and examined them carefully, looking for something. What are you looking for? Nothing. Just checking to make sure you're okay. He was looking for needle marks, I realized. Signs that I was using drugs. He'd probably planted drugs on his other victims before killing them, making their deaths look like overdoses. Brian, you're scaring me. I'm sorry, baby. I just worry about you. You're so vulnerable now, so trusting. Someone could take advantage of you. Like how? Like convincing you to sign papers you don't understand. Or take medications that aren't good for you. Or trust people who don't have your best interests at heart. He was setting up his next move, I realized. He was going to sedate me, make it look like a suicide or accidental overdose. Another tragic victim of brain damage and depression. I would never do anything like that, I said. I only trust you. Good. That's very good. He sat back down beside me, closer this time. Meredith, I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need you to come with me. Tonight. There's somewhere safe we can go, somewhere no one will bother us. Where? A cabin upstate. Very private, very quiet. You can rest there, recover properly. I'll take care of everything. A cabin upstate. Isolated, private, the perfect place to dispose of a body. That sounds wonderful, I said. But I should probably tell the social worker. No. His voice was sharp, then he softened it. No, baby. We don't need to tell anyone. This is just for us. But what if something happens to me? What if my condition gets worse? I'll take care of you. I'm the only one who really understands what you need. He was getting impatient, I could see it in the tension of his shoulders, the way his hands kept clenching and unclenching. He wanted to get me somewhere isolated where he could finish what he'd started. Hey, I said. But can I pack some things first? Of course. But quickly. I want to get on the road before it gets too late. I stood up and walked toward the bedroom, knowing that Agent Kim and her team were listening to every word. They had what they needed. Brian had essentially confessed to eliminating his previous wives. But I wanted more. I wanted him to admit what he'd done to me. Brian. I called from the bedroom. Can you help me? I can't remember which clothes are mine. He appeared in the doorway and I saw him scanning the room again, looking for threats, for signs that this was a trap. These are all your clothes, he said. Don't you remember buying them? No. I don't remember anything about shopping. Did we shop together a lot? Sometimes. He was distracted, checking the windows, the closet. What about our wedding? Do you remember our wedding? Of course. Tell me about it. I can only remember pieces. He relaxed slightly, his ego responding to the request. It was perfect. You wore your mother's dress and you looked so beautiful. You cried when you said your vows. What did I promise? To love, honor, and obey. To be faithful until death do us part. And what did you promise? The same thing. But you didn't mean it, did you? The question hung in the air like a blade. Brian went very still. What did you say? You didn't mean your vows. You never loved me. You just wanted my house. His mask finally slipped completely. The charming, concerned husband disappeared, replaced by something cold and predatory. How much do you remember, Meredith? Everything. He lunged for me, but I was ready. Months of physical therapy had made me stronger than I'd ever been, and rage had made me faster. I dodged his grab and brought my knee up hard into his stomach. He doubled over, gasping, and I ran for the living room, shouting for the agents I knew were listening. FBI. Get down on the ground. The front door exploded inward and Agent Kim burst in with her team, weapons drawn. Brian straightened up, his hands raised, but his eyes were locked on mine. You clever little bastard, he said, and there was almost admiration in his voice. I should have ended you in the hospital. Why didn't you? I wanted to watch you suffer first. I wanted you to lose everything slowly, piece by piece, until you begged me to end it. Like you did to Maria? Melinda. His smile was cold, reptilian. They were weak. They broke too easily. But you might have been fun to play with. Agent Kim stepped between us. Brian Castellanos, you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and suspicion of murder. As they cuffed him, he looked back at me one last time. This isn't over, Meredith. I have friends, family. People who owe me favors. You'll never be safe. Maybe not, I said. But I'll be free. They dragged him away, still threatening, still trying to maintain control even as his world collapsed around him. I sank onto the couch, shaking with adrenaline and relief. It was over. Finally, it was over. But as I would soon learn, Brian Castellanos had one more surprise waiting for me. The trial lasted 3 months. Elena sat beside me every day as witness after witness testified to Brian's crimes. The FBI had found evidence linking him to not just 3 murders but 7. 7 women who'd fallen in love with a charming man and paid with their lives. The handwriting expert confirmed that my signatures on the power of attorney documents had been forged. The forensic accountant traced my stolen money through a maze of offshore accounts. Most damning of all, they found Brian's elimination kit in a storage unit. Drugs, syringes, and detailed plans for staging each woman's death. He showed no remorse, no emotion throughout the entire proceedings. He sat at the defendant's table like he was bored, occasionally smirking when particularly damaging evidence was presented. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. 7 life sentences without the possibility of parole. I should have felt vindicated, triumphant. Instead, I felt empty. Justice had been served, but it couldn't bring back the years I'd lost, the trust that had been shattered, the woman I'd been before I learned that love could be a weapon. It's over, Elena said as we left the courthouse. You can start rebuilding now. But rebuilding what? My house was gone, sold to an innocent family who'd done nothing wrong. My money was gone, spent on legal fees and the long process of proving I existed. My identity was gone, fractured into before and after, the woman who'd trusted and the woman who'd survived. I was staying in Elena's spare room, working part-time at a bookstore, trying to figure out who I was supposed to be now. The insurance company had finally agreed to pay out on my life insurance policy. Apparently, being declared dead while actually alive created some interesting legal complications. But even that felt hollow. Blood money from a life that no longer existed. 3 weeks after the trial ended, Elena came home with a strange expression on her face. Mare, there's someone here to see you. Who? She says her name is Carmen. She's Brian's sister. My blood turned to ice. I don't want to see her. She says it's important. She says she has something that belongs to you. I found Carmen waiting in Elena's living room, and the family resemblance was unmistakable. She had Brian's dark eyes and sharp cheekbones, but where his features had been predatory, hers seemed haunted. She was older than him, maybe 40, with graying hair and the kind of deep lines that come from years of worry. Ms. Anders, she said, standing when I entered. Thank you for seeing me. What do you want? To apologize. And to give you this. She held out a manila envelope, thick with documents. I didn't take it. I don't want anything from your family. Please. Just listen to me for 5 minutes and then I'll leave and never bother you again. Something in her voice made me pause. She sounded broken, defeated in a way that reminded me of myself 3 months ago. 5 minutes. She sat back down, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. I need you to know that we didn't know. My family, I mean. We didn't know what Brian was doing. You expect me to believe that? I know how it sounds. But Brian, he was always different. Even as a child, he could lie so convincingly that he'd make you doubt your own memory. Our parents thought he was gifted. They never saw what I saw. Which was the way he practiced emotions in the mirror. The way he studied people like they were puzzles to solve. The way small animals would disappear when he was around. I felt a chill run down my spine. Why are you telling me this? Because I've been carrying this guilt for 20 years. I knew he was dangerous, but I never said anything. I told myself he'd grow out of it, that maybe I was wrong about him. You were his sister. You could have stopped him. Could I? Her laugh was bitter. When I was 16, I tried to tell my parents about the things I'd seen. Brian convinced them I was jealous, that I was making things up because he was the favorite. They sent me to therapy. By the time I was 18, I'd learned to keep my mouth shut. What's in the envelope? Everything. Bank records, property deeds, insurance policies. All the money he stole from you and the others. I found where he hid it. My hands shook as I took the envelope. How much? Almost $2 million. Your money plus what he stole from Maria and Melinda. I thought maybe you could make sure their families get what's rightfully theirs. $2 million. Enough to rebuild my life, to help the families of Brian's other victims. It was more than I dared hope for. Why? I asked. Why are you doing this? Carmen's eyes filled with tears. Because I have a daughter. She's 25 and she's dating a man who reminds me of Brian. Charming, controlling, always pushing her to cut ties with her family. I see the same pattern starting and I won't let it happen again. Have you told her? I've tried. But she's in love, and love makes you blind to the things that matter most. You know that better than anyone. I did know that. I knew exactly how it felt to ignore red flags, to explain away concerning behavior, to choose love over self-preservation. What's her name? Sophia. Sophia Castellanos. Bring her to me. Carmen looked surprised. What? Bring her to me. Let me tell her what her uncle really was. Let me show her what happens when you trust the wrong person. She won't listen. She thinks the family is just jealous because her boyfriend is successful. Then we'll make her listen. We'll show her the trial transcripts, the evidence, the photos of his other victims. We'll make it impossible for her to ignore the truth. Carmen nodded slowly. You'd do that? After everything our family put you through? I'd do it to save one woman from going through what I went through. What Maria and Melinda went through. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. After Carmen left, I sat with Elena and went through the contents of the envelope. Bank statements, property records, detailed financial records going back years. Brian had been meticulous in his record-keeping, documenting every theft like trophies. This is incredible, Elena said, studying a spreadsheet that tracked his victims' assets. He was planning this for years. Look at this. He has notes about potential targets, their financial situations, their vulnerabilities. I found my own name on the list with notes that made my skin crawl. Isolated from friends and family. Inherited property worth $400,000. No close relatives. Trusting nature. Potential health issues could provide cover for incapacitation. Health issues. He'd known about my tumor before I did. Elena, look at this. I pointed to a medical report dated 6 months before my diagnosis. He had access to my medical records. How is that possible? I thought back to all the times Brian had insisted on coming to my doctor's appointments, how he'd charmed the nurses and staff, how he'd always volunteered to handle the insurance paperwork. He was stealing my medical information. He knew I was going to get sick before I did. Jesus. He probably caused the tumor somehow. No, that's not possible. But he knew it was there and he planned everything around it. The timing of the marriage, the power of attorney documents, the house sale, it was all coordinated with my surgery. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Mare, there's something else. Something I didn't want to tell you during the trial. What? I found another name on his target list. Someone he was planning to go after next. She handed me a sheet of paper with a photo attached. A young woman with kind eyes and a trusting smile. The notation read, Rebecca Melvin, 28, Inherited Trust Fund, recently divorced, vulnerable to romantic manipulation. We have to warn her. I already did. She's in protective custody until we can be sure all of Brian's associates are rounded up. Visits. The word sent a chill through me. You think he was working with other people? The FBI thinks so. This operation was too sophisticated for one person. They're still investigating. As if summoned by our conversation, my phone rang. Agent Kim's name appeared on the screen. Meredith, we need to talk. Can you come to the field office? What's wrong? We've arrested 3 more people in connection with Brian's crimes. But there's something else. Something you need to know about your husband. Ex-husband. That's just it. He wasn't your husband. Not legally. The words didn't make sense. What do you mean? Brian Castellanos isn't his real name. His real name is Miguel Santos and he's already married. Has been for 15 years. The room spun around me. That's impossible. I'm afraid not. We'll explain everything when you get here. But Meredith, you were never married to him. Which means everything he did to you was fraud from the very beginning. I hung up the phone and stared at Elena, who looked as shocked as I felt. If I was never married to him, I said slowly, then the divorce was fake. The power of attorney was fake. The house sale was completely illegal. Which means I can get it all back. The house, the money, everything. But even as I said it, I realized something that made my blood run cold. If Brian, Miguel, was still legally married to someone else, that meant there was another woman out there. A woman who might be in danger. Elena, we need to find his real wife. Why? Because if he's been using fake identities to marry and eliminate women for years, she either knows about it, or she's his next victim. Agent Kim's revelation at the FBI field office was even more shocking than I'd anticipated. Miguel Santos has been living a double life for over a decade, she explained, spreading photos and documents across the conference table. Brian Castellanos was just one of several identities he used to target victims. How many identities? At least 5 that we found so far. Different names, different backgrounds, different personalities. He was like a chameleon, becoming whatever his victims needed him to be. She showed me driver's licenses, social security cards, even college transcripts. All fake, all meticulously crafted to support his various personas. But his real wife, I said. Where is she? Agent Kim's expression grew grim. That's what we need to talk to you about. Her name is Isabella Santos and she's been missing for 3 weeks. Missing? She filed a missing person report on her husband, Miguel, claiming he'd disappeared without explanation. But when we went to interview her, she was gone too. No signs of struggle, no note, nothing. You think he got rid of her? We think she found out what he was doing and confronted him. The timeline matches up with when he started getting sloppy, when he made the mistakes that led us to him. Agent Kim pulled out a photograph of a woman in her 40s with dark hair and tired eyes. She looked worn down, like someone who'd been carrying a heavy burden for years. This is Isabella. She's been married to Miguel for 15 years, and according to her sister, it hasn't been a happy marriage. Abusive. Controlling. Manipulative. Classic patterns of psychological abuse. But here's the interesting part. Isabella is wealthy. Very wealthy. Her family owns a chain of restaurants throughout the Southwest. The pieces clicked into place. He married her for her money just like he did with us. Exactly. But unlike his other victims, Isabella was harder to isolate. She had family, business connections, people who would notice if she disappeared. So he couldn't just eliminate her and move on. Instead, he created alternate identities to target other women while staying married to her. Right. He'd disappear for weeks or months at a time, claiming he was traveling for business. Isabella thought he was having affairs, but she never suspected he was committing crimes like this. Elena leaned forward. So what changed? Why did she go missing now? We think she found evidence of his crimes. Maybe she hired a private investigator, or maybe she just got suspicious enough to start digging. Either way, she discovered the truth about her husband. And he got rid of her for it. That's our working theory. But here's the problem, we can't find her body. And without a body we can't prove he did anything to her. I studied Isabella's photograph, seeing something familiar in her eyes. The same haunted look I'd seen in my own mirror for months after discovering Brian's betrayal. She's not dead, I said suddenly. What makes you say that? Because I know Miguel. He's a sadist. He doesn't just eliminate his victims, he destroys them first. He makes them suffer, makes them lose everything they care about before he finishes them off. So you think he's keeping her alive? I think he's torturing her. Making her watch as he destroys her life piece by piece, just like he did to me. Agent Kim nodded slowly. That would fit his pattern. But where would he keep her? He's in federal custody. He has associates. You said so yourself. Someone is carrying out his plans while he's locked up. We've been investigating his known associates, but what about his family? His real family, not the fake relatives he introduced to his victims. Miguel Santos has no living family on record. Just a sister who doesn't want to have anything doing with him. Then check Isabella's family. If he's been manipulating her for 15 years, he would have identified the people she cares about most. He'd use them as leverage. Agent Kim was already reaching for her phone. I'll have the team check on Isabella's relatives immediately. But I was already thinking ahead, remembering something Carmen had said about her daughter Sophia. About how she was dating someone who reminded her of Brian. Agent Kim, I need you to check something else. Carmen Santos mentioned that her daughter is dating someone who exhibits controlling behavior. What if it's not a coincidence? What if Miguel's associates are targeting his victims' families? I think Miguel planned for the possibility of getting caught. I think he set up a network to continue his work, to punish anyone who might testify against him. The thought sent ice through my veins. If I was right, then Elena was in danger. Carmen was in danger. Anyone who'd helped bring Miguel down was now a target. We need protection, I said. For all of us. Already arranged. But Meredith, if you're right about Isabella being alive, we need to find her fast. Miguel's associates won't keep her alive indefinitely. Then let me help. Absolutely not. You've done enough. You've been through enough. Agent Kim, I know how Miguel thinks. I know his patterns, his methods. I can help you find her. It's too dangerous. Everything is dangerous now. If his associates are targeting the families of his victims, then I'm already in danger. At least this way I can fight back. Elena grabbed my arm. Mare, you can't be serious. You almost died the last time you went up against him. And Isabella will definitely die if we don't find her. I can't live with that on my conscience. Agent Kim studied me for a long moment. What did you have in mind? Miguel is narcissistic. He needs to feel in control even from prison. I bet he's still communicating with his associates, giving them orders. All his communications are monitored. Then he's using code. Or he's found another way to get messages out. What if I visited him in prison? What? What if I went to see him, made him think I was broken, that I wanted to reconcile? He'd want to gloat, to tell me how clever he's been. He might let something slip about where Isabella is. That's insane. It's the only way. Miguel's ego is his weakness. He won't be able to resist the chance to show me how thoroughly he's destroyed my life. Agent Kim shook her head. Even if I agreed to this, which I'm not, Miguel would never believe you wanted to reconcile. He knows you testified against him. Then I'll tell him I was coerced. That the FBI threatened me, forced me to lie. I'll tell him I've realized I still love him, that I want to help him appeal his conviction. He's too smart for that. Maybe. But he's also arrogant enough to believe that he's irresistible, that any woman who's ever loved him will eventually come back to him. Elena was shaking her head. This is crazy, Mare. You're talking about walking into the lion's den. I'm talking about saving an innocent woman's life. And maybe getting some real closure for myself. Agent Kim was quiet for a long moment, clearly weighing the risks. Finally she spoke. If we were to consider this, it would have to be completely controlled. You'd be wired, we'd have agents nearby, and at the first sign of trouble we'd pull you out. Agreed. And you'd have to be convincing. Miguel is a master manipulator. If he suspects for even a second that you're working with us, he won't suspect. Because part of what I'll tell him will be true. What do you mean? I took a deep breath, preparing to admit something I'd barely acknowledged to myself. I'll tell him that despite everything he did to me, despite all the pain and betrayal, there's still a part of me that loves him. Because that's the truth. That's the part of this whole nightmare that I can't make sense of. How you can love someone who destroys you, how you can miss someone who tried to erase you from existence. The room was silent. Elena reached over and squeezed my hand. That doesn't make you weak, Mare. That makes you human. It makes me the perfect person to fool Miguel Santos. Because he'll recognize the truth in what I'm saying, even if he doesn't understand the whole truth. Agent Kim nodded slowly. When do you want to do this? Tomorrow. Before I lose my nerve. Meredith, Agent Kim said, her voice serious. You need to understand something. If Miguel realizes you're working with us, if he gives his associates the order, they won't just end Isabella's life. They'll come for you too. I know. And you're still willing to do this? I thought about Isabella Santos, trapped somewhere, probably terrified, probably wondering if anyone was looking for her. I thought about Maria and Melinda, who'd never gotten the chance to fight back. I thought about all the future victims who might be saved if we could dismantle Miguel's network completely. I'm willing. Then God help us all. The federal prison was a fortress of concrete and steel, surrounded by razor wire and guard towers. As I walked through the security checkpoints, my heart hammered against my ribs so hard I was sure the guards could hear it. Agent Kim had spent hours coaching me on what to say, how to act, what signals to give if I needed help. The wire taped to my chest felt like it was burning through my skin, a constant reminder of how dangerous this was. Remember, Agent Kim had said during our final briefing, Miguel is going to test you. He'll say things designed to hurt you, to make you angry. You have to stay in character no matter what. Now, sitting in the sterile visiting room waiting for him to appear, I wondered if I was making the biggest mistake of my life. The door opened and there he was. Prison had changed him. He was thinner, paler, but his eyes were the same, cold, calculating, predatory. He wore an orange jumpsuit that should have made him look diminished, but somehow he still carried himself with that same arrogant confidence that had first attracted me. He sat across from me, separated by a thick sheet of bulletproof glass, and picked up the phone. I did the same, my hands trembling. Hello, Meredith. Hello, Miguel. His eyebrows rose slightly at my use of his real name. So you know. I know everything now. Do you? He leaned back in his chair, studying me like a specimen under a microscope. Then why are you here? Because I need to understand. I need to know why you did this to me. I think you know why. The money, the house. That's all I was to you. He was quiet for a long moment, and I could see him deciding how much truth to reveal. Finally, he smiled. That same charming smile that had made me fall in love with him. You were the most challenging one, he said. The others were easy, lonely, desperate, obvious in their vulnerabilities. But you were different. You had strength, intelligence, independence. Breaking you was artistic. The words hit me like physical blows, but I forced myself to stay calm. You enjoyed it. I enjoyed the challenge. You made me work for it, made me be creative. The way I isolated you from your friends, convinced you to trust me with your finances, made you dependent on me emotionally. It was masterful. And the tumor? Did you know about that from the beginning? I knew you were predisposed to them. Your medical records showed a family history. I just had to wait for nature to take its course. You could have saved me. You could have told me to get checked earlier. Where would be the fun in that? The timing was perfect. You were vulnerable, scared, completely dependent on me. It was the ideal opportunity to complete the transfer of assets. I wanted to reach through the glass and strangle him. Instead, I forced tears into my eyes. I loved you, I whispered. I loved you so much. I know you did. That's what made it so easy. Do you feel anything for me? Anything at all? He tilted his head, considering the question. You were useful. And entertaining. I suppose that's a form of affection. The FBI says you're married. That you have a real wife. His expression darkened. Isabella is a business arrangement. She always has been. Do you love her? Love is a weakness, Meredith. It makes people do stupid things like visiting their ex-husbands in federal prison. I had to see you. I had to know if what we had was real. What we had was a transaction. I gave you the illusion of love and you gave me everything you owned. But I still feel it, I said, letting my voice break. Even knowing what you are, what you did, I still feel something for you. That's because you're weak. All women are weak. That's why this was so easy. The FBI made me testify against you. They threatened to charge me as an accessory if I didn't cooperate. I know. I don't blame you for that. I told them what they wanted to hear, but I didn't tell them everything. Now I had his attention. He leaned forward, his eyes sharp with interest. What didn't you tell them? About the offshore accounts. The ones in the Cayman Islands. It was a lie, but a calculated one. Agent Kim had briefed me on Miguel's financial network, and we suspected there were hidden assets the FBI hadn't found yet. What about them? I found the account numbers. In your desk, hidden behind that loose board you thought I didn't know about. His poker face slipped for just a moment. There had been a loose board in his desk. I'd discovered it months ago but never mentioned it. You're lying. Account number 8472991CY. Balance as of last month. $1.2 million. The number was fake, but his reaction told me I was on the right track. There were hidden accounts and he was worried about them. What do you want, Meredith? I want to help you. I want to make up for testifying against you. How? I could access the accounts. Transfer the money before the FBI finds them. Hide it somewhere safe until you get out. I'm never getting out. Appeals take years. Things change. Evidence gets thrown out. Witnesses disappear. The last words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. Miguel's eyes glittered with something that might have been approval. You've learned, he said. You made me harder. You taught me that the world is full of predators and if you want to survive, you have to become one yourself. And what would you want in return for this? Assistance? I want to know where Isabella is. The question caught him off guard. For a split second his mask slipped completely and I saw something that looked almost like panic. I don't know what you're talking about. Your real wife, Miguel. The FBI says she's missing. I know you had something to do with it. The FBI says a lot of things. I'm not wearing a wire if that's what you're worried about. They searched me thoroughly before they let me in here. It was true. The wire was so sophisticated that even the prison's security scanners couldn't detect it. Why do you care about Isabella? Because I understand her. I know what it's like to love you, to trust you, to have your whole world destroyed by your lies. Isabella never loved me. She married me for status, for the appearance of respectability. It was always a business arrangement. But she found out, didn't she? She discovered what you really are. Miguel was quiet for a long moment and I could see him weighing his options. Finally he spoke. Isabella got curious. Started asking questions, hiring investigators. He thought she was so clever, so careful. But I've been watching her for 15 years. I know her better than she knows herself. Where is she, Miguel? Somewhere safe. Somewhere she can't cause any more trouble. Is she alive? For now. Your associates have her. I don't have associates. I work alone. Then who's been carrying out your orders while you've been in here? His smile was cold, reptilian. You're fishing, Meredith. The FBI coached you well. My heart stopped. He knew. Somehow he'd figured out that I was working with the authorities. I don't know what you mean. Of course you do. Did you really think I'd fall for this pathetic performance? The grieving ex-wife, still in love despite everything? Please. Miguel, The only question is whether you're wearing a wire or if this room is bugged. My guess is both. He stood up, preparing to leave, and I knew I had seconds before I lost my only chance to find Isabella. Wait, I said desperately. You're right. The FBI sent me. But everything else I said was true. I do still have feelings for you and I do want to help. He paused, his hand on the phone. I can get you information, I continued. About the investigation, about what they know about their plans. I can be your inside source. And why would you do that? Because you're right about me being weak. Because despite everything you did, I can't let go. Because I'd rather be useful to you than nothing to you. It was the most humiliating thing I'd ever said, but it was also believable. Miguel's ego was so massive that he could easily accept that a woman would betray law enforcement for him. He sat back down, his expression calculating. What kind of information? They're planning to raid your storage units tomorrow. All of them. They found the key you hid in your mother's grave. Another lie, but based on intelligence agent Kim had shared with me. Miguel's face went pale. That's impossible. No one knew about that. Someone talked. One of your associates probably. They're all trying to cut deals now. Which associate? I don't know. But Miguel, if you tell me where Isabella is, I can warn your people. I can help them move her before the FBI finds her. He stared at me for a long moment and I could see the wheels turning in his head. Finally, he leaned forward and spoke in a whisper. The warehouse on Pier 47. But Meredith, if you're lying to me, if this is some kind of trap, my people have orders to eliminate Isabella immediately. And then they'll come for you. I understand. Do you? Because once you cross this line, there's no going back. You'll be an accessory to kidnapping, possibly murder. The FBI won't protect you anymore. I know. He smiled then, the same smile that had made me fall in love with him 4 years ago. Welcome to the dark side, my dear. I always knew you had it in you. The visit ended and I was escorted back through the security checkpoints, my legs shaking so badly I could barely walk. Agent Kim was waiting for me in the parking lot, along with a full tactical team. Did you get it? She asked. Pier 47. There's a warehouse. But Kim, he knows I'm working with you. And he says his people have orders to eliminate Isabella if they suspect a trap. We'll be careful. Silent approach, no sirens, no obvious law enforcement presence. What about his threat? He said his people would come after me. We'll put you in protective custody until this is over. But as we raced toward the waterfront, I couldn't shake the feeling that Miguel had been playing a game within a game, that even now, even locked in a federal prison, he was still 3 steps ahead of us. The warehouse district was a maze of abandoned buildings and rusted shipping containers. Pier 47 sat at the end of a dead-end street, surrounded by chain-link fence and warning signs. There, Agent Kim pointed to a large windowless building. That has to be it. The tactical team moved in with military precision, surrounding the building, cutting through locks, preparing for entry. I watched from a safe distance, my heart pounding with fear and hope. The explosion came without warning. A massive fireball erupted from the warehouse, sending debris flying in all directions. The blast knocked me to the ground, my ears ringing, my vision blurred by smoke and dust. When the smoke cleared, the warehouse was gone. Nothing remained but a crater and twisted metal. Isabella! I screamed, struggling to my feet. Agent Kim grabbed my arm, her face grim. She's gone, Meredith. If she was in there, she's gone. But as we stood there watching the flames, I realized something that made my blood run cold. Miguel had been expecting us. He'd known exactly what would happen when we found the warehouse. He'd sacrificed Isabella to send a message. And the message was clear. He could reach anyone, anywhere, anytime. Even from behind bars, Miguel Santos was still playing the game. And he was still winning. The coffee shop in downtown Portland was nothing like the places I used to frequent. It was small, anonymous, the kind of place where no one asked questions and everyone minded their own business. Perfect for someone trying to disappear. I'd been Regina Mitchell for 6 months now. New name, new identity, new life. The FBI had relocated me after Miguel's associates made good on their threats. 3 attempts on my life in 2 weeks had convinced even the most skeptical agents that I needed to vanish completely. Lena thought I was dead. So did Carmen and her daughter Sophia. So did everyone else from my old life. It was the only way to keep them safe. The insurance money from my death had been quietly transferred to accounts that would help the families of Miguel's victims. Maria's mother could finally afford the medical care she needed. Melinda's sister could send her kids to college. It wasn't justice, but it was something. Miguel was still in prison, still pulling strings, still orchestrating chaos from his cell. 3 more women had died in the past 6 months, all of them connected to his case in some way. a prosecutor's wife, a FBI agent's daughter, a journalist who'd been investigating his crimes. The message was always the same: cross Miguel Santos and everyone you love will pay. But sitting in that coffee shop, reading about his latest victim in the newspaper, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Bigger. Not the helpless rage of a victim, but the cold, calculating fury of someone who'd learned to fight back. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd memorized but never called. Agent Kim. It's me. A long pause. Jesus Christ, Meredith. We thought you were dead. I was. But Regina Mitchell is very much alive. And she has a proposition for you. What kind of proposition? Miguel thinks he's untouchable. He thinks he can keep killing people from prison, that his network is too sophisticated to be dismantled. He's been right so far. Because you've been playing by the rules. But Miguel doesn't play by rules. He plays by fear, manipulation, and violence. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we beat him at his own game. Meredith. Regina. My name is Regina now. And Regina Mitchell has spent 6 months learning everything there is to know about Miguel Santos. His network, his methods, his weaknesses. What weaknesses? The man is a ghost. We can't even prove he's giving orders from prison. He has one weakness. The same weakness that brought him down in the first place. Which is his ego. He can't resist the chance to prove how clever he is. And I'm going to give him that chance. How? I smiled, feeling something dark and satisfied settle in my chest. I'm going to make him think I've joined him. Really joined him this time. I'm going to become everything he always said I could be. Ruthless, calculating, willing to do whatever it takes to win. That's insane. Maybe. But it's also the only way to get close enough to destroy him completely. And if you're wrong? If he sees through the deception? Then Regina Mitchell dies, and Miguel Santos learns that some people are willing to sacrifice everything to stop him. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When do we start? Agent Kim finally asked. We already have. Miguel's going to receive a very interesting letter tomorrow. From a woman named Regina Mitchell who claims to be his biggest admirer. A woman who's studied his methods and wants to learn from the master. You think he'll buy it? I think his ego won't let him resist. And once I'm inside his network, once I have his trust, you'll destroy it from within. I'll destroy everything. His associates, his operations, his legacy. I'll make sure that when Miguel Santos finally dies, he dies knowing that the woman he tried to break was the one who brought down his empire. I hung up the phone and walked out of the coffee shop, leaving Regina Mitchell's quiet life behind. It was time for Meredith Anders to rise from the dead. But this time she wouldn't be the trusting, naive woman who'd fallen for a charming sociopath's lies. This time she would be the predator. And Miguel Santos was about to learn that the most dangerous enemy is the one you create yourself. The game was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. And this time I intended to win.